Thank you, Diego. And also for everyone, try and speak as slowly and clearly and as pleasantly as Diego just did, so we can all hear what's going on. Uh, Again, if you can, put your name on, because iPhone doesn't say much. You actually just have to right click on your name and then you can write pretty much anything. You can write Superman or Superwoman. And but that wouldn't help us identifying you. So please write your real name and also turn on your camera so we can see who you are. We're right now 31 people joined in for this is CBN, the Creative Business Network webinar on creative business investors. This is an issue that we have been looking into since we started the Creative Business Cup back in 2012. Why is it that startups from the culture and creative industries have a harder time finding investors? Is that because they come from a background, a non-business background, so they're not used to presenting and using the business term that investors are looking for? Is it because the investors they are not educated well enough to understand what are the business models of the future, Cirque du Soleil or Lego or whatever? Because the culture and creative industries make up about 12% of the economy, actually. So, so it's worth investing in and looking at. And to discuss this subject, we will do it today, this morning. We will do it again on the 17th of June, where we have one where it's in the afternoon, so that our friends in the Americas can also join in. Of course, if some of you from Asia that have joined wants to stay up late, then you're also welcome to join us on the 17th for another session on creative business investors. And then on during the Bright 2020, which takes place from the 29th of June to the 3rd of July, you're also welcome to join in on our creative business investors series. Actually, there will be several speakers on various subjects related to investment in the cultural and creative industries. But enough from me. I think, do we need a Mentimeter introduction
Yes,
first?
exactly,
Good.
precisely. So to keep this actually webinar interactive, we're going to use Mentimeter, an app to so we can share what we see and what we think. So I'm going to start presenting here. For the instructions, go to menti.com on your smartphone and insert the code 693771. 693771. After that, you can start answering our questions. So whenever you are in, also tap the green heart that you can see there, so we know that you're there. There you go, exactly. Perfect. This code will always be shown in the top of the slide. So whenever you come in and go to menti.com, you can use the code 693771. So let's start with the first question to start warming up to Mentimeter. Where do you come from? Write the name of your country or the state where you come from. Yes, perfect. Nice, great. We have a great variety today. All right. Up to 15 people are participating. Maybe a few more can join.
It's very easy. Just go to menti.com on your smartphone, type in the code 693771 and answer the questions.
We can see here that we have quite a few people from Denmark, Ukraine, and Switzerland who are the biggest names here on the screen. Great. So this is how Mentimeter works, and we're going to keep going with that throughout all the webinar, and our speakers are going to let me know when we will start with the Mentimeter back again. Thank you.
Thank you, Diego. And now it's time to introduce our four speakers. That's the great thing about the Creative Business Network. We don't have to look very far. Right in our phone and in our network, we have the right people to cover almost all subjects that you can imagine related to the culture and creative industries. I have invited two former jury members that both have an investor background. The first one is Gwen Regina. She's the creator of Unquestions, and she's an angel investor. And Gwen will also be my co-host today. So she will run most of it until we get to the Q&A towards the last third of this webinar. We also have Jeffrey Payne, who's a managing partner at Golden Gate Ventures in Singapore. We have been, Jeffrey was part of the jury in 2017 and saw lots of great startups back then. It was China that won with cell robots, and we had Bill Bits from Lebanon up there with some messy stuff of building houses, and we had also some great startups from Israel making textile out of algae. Then in 2019 was when was there, our last edition, and you saw for the first time Denmark win La P. Back in 2016, however, we had Heigo Fukugaki as a startup from Japan. You were the winner of Japan, and you were actually, as we found out, or I found out, that you're also one of my former students here in Copenhagen. You studied creative industries as a foreign student, and you won the Japanese competition, and you will speak about the BNA Hotel Bed and Arts that you have established and founded in Japan. And last but not least, we have Camille Huck he's the artistic director of the Huck Center for Acting and Creativity and Method Productions. And he will also be talking about why he has or hasn't worked with investors and why it's difficult. So these great speakers, but in reality, you're all 38 people that have joined it now are all welcome to join in and ask questions. The good thing you can do is to write your questions in the chat, because then we can both formulate them and see if there's some that are similar. And if you don't do that, we'll still try and call some of you out. But now I'll give the floor to Gwen. So Gwen, take it away.
Thank you so much, Rasmus, Diego, and the rest of the CBN network. Thank you so much for having me again. So yeah, I was in Copenhagen last year. It was an amazing experience for me because just a little bit of my background, I've spent the last 15 years across tech and media, across startups and investments. And I've always focused on tech, you know, like just tech as an enabler, as a horizontal, but never really have been to a conference that's focused on creativity and creative businesses. So when Rasmus invited me last year, it was like amazing. I was like, wow, you know, in one place, I got to see many companies. So it's amazing. So a little bit more my background as well. I wear 3 hats. So I've been an ex-founder. I started a media company focused on technology startups in Southeast Asia many years ago. And I sold that company also a few years ago. I was lucky to have sold the company. And I was also privileged enough to have been able to start an investment fund, early stage investment fund, more than a decade ago, investing in startups in Southeast Asia. And today I'm an angel investor. And today, Rasmus briefly kind of introduced my title. So I have a new artistic project of mine, also in media. It's called On Questions. And it's really a project of mine where I'm really exploring the art and science of asking good questions. So I'm really asking myself, what is a good question? So today, you know, it's a panel discussion, and Rasmus and Diego, we've talked about the importance of questions and how we want you to interact with us. It's exactly the theme, right? But more than that, my project is really about how can we ask better questions and enable others to ask better questions. So my website has a little bit of a one-pager, and I won't go into that. But yeah, so I guess briefly on the topic of investments. So in art investments, it's something that I wouldn't say I'm personally very experienced about, but my background has media experience, and that's a space that I really kind of like. So what I mean by media here is that I'm really focused on digital media. So again, my startup was a digital media outfit, digital publisher, and I also led Mashable's expansion to Asia Pacific a few years ago. Also digital media, so that's really where my space in. And from the investment side of things, today I hope to also be able to be a panelist and contribute some ideas as well in terms of investment. So I'm an angel investor, but I've done kind of seed investment as well. So any questions regarding investment journey, how to pitch to investors, you know, Jeffrey here will be like great person alongside me to kind of talk about it, but I would love to also kind of provide some insight there. I think that's it for me for now.
Great, perfect. So we'll start with the Mentimeter, right? We started with the first 2 questions of the Mentimeter.
So for those of you who just joined, grab your phone, go to menti.com, type in the code 693771, and then answer the questions.
Precisely. Have you already started a creative business? That's the first question we have right now. We've 18, 19 answers. All right, we can go to the next one. Are you planning on starting a creative business or a new creative business?
Do we think that the people who say no is because they're already doing the current one?
That would be good to have that question. Is it because you're already? Yes. So we have 38 people in this webinar, and we only have what? We're not
22.
Yeah, so a bit more of you. Grab your phone and.
Thank you, Yulia, for saying yes.
Excellent. Yulia is from Ukraine, I believe.
Hello, Ukraine.
Great, perfect. Back to you, Gwen.
Thank you so much for that like quick introduction. This does give us a better idea of like who's in the room. So at this point now, to kind of I'll move the conversation over to our panelists, speakers first, to also give the brief introduction, and after that we'll go into a much more flowing discussion. So today I really want everyone to really take this session as like almost like we're having a conversation at a bar. With all this virus, social distancing, we're not, but imagine we are. If you have drinks, okay, in the morning in Europe, so maybe not drinks.
I can't wait for when we're able to do that again.
Yeah, I don't know, right? But so imagine first, we're in a bar, we're having a conversation while we are kind of speakers here, but we're going to share thoughts, but love to have, again, just interaction, right? So for now, I'll pass on to the next speaker. And Diego, would you mind introducing who the next lineup is?
Yes,
I can also go ahead with that, Diego. The next one is Jeffrey Payne from Golden Gate Ventures. Jeffrey, welcome back, at least online, to Copenhagen.
Hi, hope all of you can hear me. Thank you for inviting me, Rasmus and the team. So I'll keep this short. So I think, a lot of you have questions for everyone. It's a full group. So my name's Jeffrey. I'm from Singapore. Started a venture fund in 2011, investing in Southeast Asia. So I'm a pretty generic kind of VC, yeah. And I was judging or, at the Creative Business Cup, I think 2017, got to see, a lot of interesting projects around the world. Then my background has a little bit media in it. I did a year in film school before I went to kind of business school and computer science. So I have a little bit of understanding of how creative people function. So I'm just going to say 5 things of what I've observed, for this context. So number one, for people in the creative business and people who are starting as an entrepreneur in that industry, the first thing is you need to understand the difference between an SME and a highly scalable, high growth company. These 2 things are very different. Most creative businesses are actually not highly scalable. So that's what I find, okay? So you need to understand what you are before you are able to find the correct investor. So different investors fit different types of companies. So second thing, the investor fit versus what they expect of you. So if you find a wrong investor that expect different things from you, then the journey working with them will be tough, right? So the first step is to figure out what you are before you know what kind of investor fits you. Then the third thing that creative entrepreneurs actually don't do very much is they don't talk to investors at all, right? You're in your own world most of the time, and you always think you're right. So you don't talk to people in our field at all. You don't talk to family officers, angels, VC, seed funds, Series B, C guys, private equity guys, right? These these group of guys are somewhat in the business finance sector that you don't really want to talk to, right? So, but you have to, right? So this is the only way you get blunt feedback for your business and what you are. Are you highly scalable or are you an SME? Very simple. You need to get people to give you blunt feedback to put you in your place, and then you know what to do. Okay. You also need to know what type of company you want to run, right? Do you want to run a 10,000 employee company, or you want to run a nice little studio with 10 people? So these are things you have to question yourself. Then lastly, creative people, just like the reason why you don't talk to investors is because you just, for some reason, don't like talking to other people in other sectors. That includes your co-founders, right? So most creative founding team do not have a business co-founder. You don't have someone who's good in numbers. You don't have someone who's from an engineering background, who thinks logically. You don't have that because it just doesn't fit your vibe, right? So that's another issue. So when you're raising money, when you're forming a team, you need a team that is complementary. So for some reason, that's the way creative businesses are set up. Some people.
Some good sobering advice, Jeffrey.
So yeah, so these are the 5 points. So so yeah, so that's all. If you have questions for me,
I just have one question until we move on. And Gwen, you're also welcome to jump in. Have you at Golden Gate Ventures, you're a very successful venture capital firm, have you invested in fashion or music or movies or tourism industry? Have you done that?
We have looked at gaming. We have looked at film, but this is a different business, right? Just today, I was talking to one of the strongest new media production houses in Korea. It's very hard to scale. So we have done fashion, yes, but direct to consumer is very, very hard to do. We wanted to try it. We wanted to learn it. We are still investors. It's doing decently well, but as a return, it's actually not extremely good. We just did a deal in the OTT space, so it's more like a Netflix type of business.
Okay.
And they will also be doing production. So these kind of companies are a little bit more diversified, right? They have a distribution network, and then they do IP. Yeah. So we have been looking, definitely, but it's difficult. Yeah.
When you want, yeah, go ahead.
Can I add in, like, I actually angel invested in a platform that democratizes art, where it's a marketplace to connect artists, like, independent artists from emerging markets and stuff like that, with quote unquote yuppies and young professionals. So the idea is that now, if you're gonna commission a piece of art, it requires, I don't know, $10,000, $100,000, for your new hotel or something. But people like us with our homes, we don't have $100,000 to commission a new piece of art, but we can spend $500, $1,000. So this was a platform I invested in about a few years ago, but unfortunately, it's not there yet. It's gone. But I tried.
And now to Keigo. You were part of the Creative Business Cup back in 2016, where we were wearing. I remember one of the pictures I have of you is with a Christmas hat on at a party. At some billionaire's house, I remember, here in Copenhagen. And you were pitching the B&A hotels. And we just talked briefly last week about your experience with investors, which is really interesting. But tell us more about the B&A hotels and your story and to get there.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. Diego's throwing up my slides right now.
I think apparently we need a mentee, someone tells me. Is that before, as after? Okay, sorry. Yep, go ahead. Sorry, Keigo.
Okay. Hi, my name is Keigo Fukugaki. I was actually Rasmus's student when I was studying abroad in Copenhagen, but I was invited to CBC kind of through a very different pipeline, and we were lucky enough to win the Japan kind of competition in 2016, and I was part of the competition. I think we were part of the last I think it was like last six to be chosen, and it was a great experience. and I'm really happy to be part of this again. But yeah, quickly about BNA. It's short for Bed and Art Hotel, and what we are is basically an art patronage company, and we create hotel rooms with artists, local artists, and every time someone stays in it, part of the profit goes straight to the artists. So every person who stays basically becomes kind of like a small patron to the arts. And we've, since we founded in 2015, we've built 3 hotels, currently building the 4th one. I'm inside one of the rooms right now that was mintly finished like last week, and we're planning to open soon as COVID kind of calms down. But yeah, after CBC, we were introduced to a lot of different people, people who are interested in art and kind of what we're standing for. And luckily, we were able to raise $2.2 million back in 2019. But like mentioned earlier, we had to be very careful of who we chose as our investors. Obviously, we talked to a lot of VCs and social venture funds and all that kind of stuff. Financial institutions, and it took us about a year to actually close our funding. But at the end, we ended up choosing angel investors. We raised our money from 20 angel investors who are entrepreneurs, like who have exited once or twice, mentors, previous business partners that we had in our kind of personal other ventures that we have within our founders group, as well as fans. So we went with that because a lot of the time when we spoke to VCs and social ventures at any kind of institution, we felt this kind of distance between our passion and what they were able to do or able to commit themselves to. And what I mean by that is a lot of times our first interest is to support artists that we work with for as long as we can. Hotels exist for 10, 20 years. And for as long as that is there, we want to support the artists. And what happens, what we felt was happening when we had conversations with VCs was that the people that we were talking with, say person A was in charge of our kind of investment scheme. That person saw it more as their job, and they might end up moving to another investment firm 2 years down the road or something else. And a lot of times we felt we weren't on the same page in terms of how long we were willing to kind of work on this. And I think mentioned earlier, SME, or is it a huge spike in growth are we going for? And our answer was we're trying to become a global brand, so the scale is kind of big, but at the same time the way we operate is very much a SME. So those differences we had to look at very carefully. And even though we could have gotten the same amount of funding much earlier, we took our time and spent the whole year finding our angel investors. And we have a great relationship with our angels. In the end, having 20 angels helped us create a big fan base, because they're able to help us kind of reach a core group that they believe in, as well as the people that we believe in as well.
So they are kind of ambassadors and investors for the
exactly.
hotel.
Yeah, and we're much more on a personal basis with them. We see it as like a long-term kind of relationship, so it helps us keep our vision clear and our passion as the pure driver of what we do. Right now you can see on the screen, we just finished this hotel last year, about a year ago, in June. It's a 31-room hotel. Every single room is unique. About each artist makes about $600 to $700 a month in terms of how we share our revenue with them. And each artist does 2 rooms. So, you know, a little over $1,000 every month coming in from the hotel. It's not something they can live off of, but definitely something that they can use to kind of move their career on a different trajectory. And yeah.
It looks like a Danish designed lamp on the table there, but that's
yes. In the picture, you
can I ask you about, you said you had 20 investors, and you also say you have a personal relationship with them. Isn't that difficult if some of them are going in a different direction? Really, it's like a really big football team that you're trying to keep helping you out.
And it's more casual. I think the amount that they've invested, we made sure was a very safe number for them personally. It wasn't something that they were, you know, counting on to be, you know, something that spikes in the next 2-3 years and they want to exit. So those conversations had to be very personal. And yeah, we have a big party every so often, get as many of them together. And it's been great because the angels themselves have become kind of acquainted with each other, and they've started businesses with each other through our kind of investor kind of meetings, stuff like that. So I think it's been a win-win for that.
Before the Menti that we're going to launch in just a second, and if Gwen also had some questions here, I just want to briefly ask you, is it a business background that you have, Diego?
No, I should have talked about that. I'm an architect. I've designed fairly large amounts of buildings in my short career. And 2 of my other founders are ex-business consultants, one from BCG, one from like a German consulting group. So
you did actually follow Jeffrey Payne's advice on getting some other competences into your team.
Yes. And 2 of them are great with numbers. They're business savvy. One even was a country manager for a tech unicorn here in Japan briefly. And then we also have one more founder who's an art director. So it's like a nice balance. And we all speak each other's language. We spend a lot of time together. So I think that is very good for us. Yeah.
Should we, Gwen, do you have any questions for Keigo?
I do, but I'd rather kind of a more flowing conversation just after all the intros.
Okay, excellent. Then Diego will run the Menti now.
Great, perfect. Let's go back to the Menti.
Grab your smartphones.
Grab your smartphones. If you just came in, go to menti.com and use the code 693771. And the next question is, have you considered who should be your stakeholders? Stakeholders, founders, employees, communities, or others? Sorry, the first is shareholders, not stakeholders. Shareholders, founders, employees, community, or others. All right.
So go to menti.com, enter 693771, and you can still catch up on the questions here.
Let's go.
We have a lot of people building on community.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go for the next one. What do you want your investors to invest into? Your product, your vision, your team, your market capital, other.
We are 37 people on this webinar, Creative Business Investors. So we could, 13, 14, 15 have voted. I hope you're representative.
Right, yeah, please do vote, because this gives us a better idea as well in terms of how we may kind of structure some of the other kind of panel discussion segments.
And it forces our participants to reflect a bit.
We have a tie here also.
Yeah. Ooh,
but that's not helpful. So more people, please vote. So that what is
All right, I'll give 2 more seconds for this. We have to go for the next question, and then we'll go for, with our next speaker. All right, there you go. Thank you, number 19. Great, and this question is, what scares you the most about fundraising as a creative entrepreneur? So here you can actually write something to us, and we will see it here in the screen. So also our speakers can get a bit of a feel of what you're actually thinking about and why is it that it is important for you to speak about this access to finance. All right, failing, not being taken seriously, not being able to explain the vision and its business. What else?
People are typing with their little thumbs.
All right.
Thank you so much for continue, please. You know, we really want to find out what you think about this. And this is really going to the core, right? Because when we talk to people, it's about like, oh, business people are just so different, you know, and you're afraid that I've heard these before that, you know, we'll seem that we're too airy-fairy and no numbers and stuff like that. So we'd love to understand what really scares you the most. And hopefully today we can try to address some of that.
How do we speak the language of fundraisers and appropriately straddle creativity and numbers without compromising our values and culture? Yep. It looks like Kego has the recipe for that. Maybe Camille Huck also has the recipe for that.
Let's go for that.
Should we? Yes. So the next speaker, also from Singapore, is Camille Huck. As I mentioned before, he's the artistic director of the Hack Center of Acting and Creativity. And you have been an acting coach, director, producer, corporate trainer, and also an actor. So you've done a lot of different stuff. Camille, the floor is yours, or the Zoom is yours.
Good morning to everyone in Denmark, and good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Camille Huck, and I'm the founder and artistic director of Hack Center of Acting and Creativity, or HCAC for short. I also have a sister company called Method Productions, which is a production house for all mediums of performance art. So HCAC itself has been around for 7 years. Interesting little bit of trivia. Today is the 7th birthday of HCAC. So happy birthday. In the 7 years that HCAC has been around, we have trained over 3,000 people from all walks of life, professional actors, non-actors, corporate warriors, all manner of people with different objectives, different experience levels, and essentially the bulk of our community, I call them creative double-lifers. And to me, a creative double-lifer is someone who's in some sort of parent-approved or society-approved profession, be it lawyer, doctor, banker, engineer, businessman, accountant, you name it. And a lot of them, they leave graduate school thinking, I'm gonna change the corporate world. And then the corporate world goes, ha, 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 ha. I laugh at your ambition. And then very quickly, that fire that they had sort of gets extinguished or diminished. And so a lot of these people, they come to my studio to work with my teachers and I to restoke that fire again, to literally have this second life where they can work on their authenticity, their personal expression, where they can find ways to free their talent. And then above and beyond that, some of these people, maybe they have zero ambitions to be artists of any particular nature, but they have heard somewhere or read on LinkedIn, or their L&D manager or HR person has said, you know, 21st century essential skills, they seem to be sort of arts-based: creativity, collaboration, cooperation, critical thinking. Why don't you go sign up for some of these things? And so a lot of the creative double-lifers, they come to the studio to pick up skills and tools that help them in their personal or their professional lives. Now, some of these people also just come to the studio simply as a safe space where they can simply be themselves, where they can meet other like-minded people, because in a country like Singapore, it is perhaps almost like a tick box that the arts is around and available, but not necessarily thriving and welcomed and given an equal seat at the table, so to speak. And having grown up in Singapore myself as a true blue Singaporean of multi-ethnic heritage, I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity, or rather the calling at 7 years old, to know what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And when I was in my early 20s, I spent 8 years in Los Angeles, sort of picking up all the tools and skills and the knowledge, and working in LA as an actor, a director, a teacher, a producer, with the intention to always start my own studio. And so in 2013, when I came back to Singapore, I knew that there was very clearly an underfed, underserviced community in Singapore of not just professional artists, but people who have ambitions of being artists, but they don't know where to go, they don't know where to get those skills, not just in training, but also with Method Productions, a place where they can also have their voice be heard on stage, on camera, on social media. And so we are constantly putting out workshops, both in person and now online, obviously because of COVID, and shows in person and also online, so that these people, regardless of where they're from, regardless of what it is that they want to do, they have not just a place where they can free their talent, but they also have a place where they can share their talents. Now, interestingly enough, unlike, say, Kego, who has been really fortunate to find that beautiful medium of finding investors and also doing what he does and doing what he loves, I have been in the position of entirely self-funding my entire business. So everything I did up to the point of before 2013 was designed with the plan to fund my own business. And you might ask, well, why didn't you find and create a team around you? Why didn't you get other VCs or partners or investors? And interestingly enough, I have been very fortunate to have a beautiful community of people who, strangers, friends, colleagues, people in the business world who have sort of like whispered in my ear and talked to me and sort of held my hand a little bit. And one piece of advice that really rang true to me was when I was starting out, it's why partner when you can hire or befriend? And so I thought to myself, I guess that makes sense for now. And so I thought, well, it's a lot easier for me to do this by myself, so I can just get things moving faster. I don't have to worry about the bureaucratic process or talking with 3, 4, 5 other people, like, is this okay? Can we do this? Not that I wasn't doing that with my network and my community, but to be able to sort of like plunge head in without having to worry about things, because one almost needs to be almost a little bit insane or a little bit just like almost like tunnel vision to be able to kind of do something creative in Singapore. And so I did it that way for the first 6 and now the 7th year. The plan now is—
you have followed, Camille, so you followed Jeffrey Payne's 4th advice, know what company you want to run. You didn't want to have 900 or 9,000 employees. You wanted to have actually more, you were focusing on your clients, actually, your customer base, right?
Absolutely. I think in the first 6 years, it was very much an SME, as Jeffrey has suggested. And the beautiful part of being able to create and have my dream come to life is the question of now what. And so the now what for this next leg is working to create my own arts education and entertainment ecosystem, where the aim is to have the acting studio, the production company, a talent agency, as well as
don't you need funding to expand or grow like that?
And that's exactly where I'm headed. So in order for me to build this ecosystem, I know that now I've got to start looking actively for investors, for funding, for conversations that lead to me not just doing it by myself.
Thank you very much, Camille. That was
what
introduction. Gwendolyn, it's all yours now.
So earlier, yeah, thank you so much, Rasmus. So in the fear question, what scares you most? Someone put that you don't know about crowdfunding, I think. So Camille, you know, you've crowdfunded, right, for HCAC. Do you mind kind of talking to your experience, giving everyone here a background of that?
So there are all manner of like popular crowdfunding platforms. The one that my team and I did the research on that seemed to be popular in terms of local but also global was Kickstarter. And so what we did last year was we decided to go down the Kickstarter route of trying to raise funds for what would have been my alumni theater company, which is a major pillar in the larger ecosystem of things. And so what we did was we sort of studied some of the more successful local Kickstarter campaigns and some of the larger global art making campaigns. And we figured out that in order for us to be able to raise a certain amount of money that was achievable, we had to come up with a product that people liked. So we decided to put together a show, our inaugural alumni theater company show. But also we had to demonstrate some level of vision and responsibility with the money. And also in a way, I guess an ROI for people sort of giving money from wherever they were in the world. So not only did people get tickets to the show, they got all sorts of manners of gifts. For example, the show that we did last year was called The Jugular Vein, which is all about the world's most hostile bachelorette party. It was a dark comedy. And one of the things that we gave people was crochet penises. I hold one of them in my hand, just simply because it felt appropriate for a bachelorette party. But more importantly, I think with the Kickstarter, what we needed to do was to make what we did accessible to people. And so we didn't come from the angle of this is high art and this is inaccessible to people. This is a company founded by people from all walks of life who are going to be putting on work that's accessible to people from all walks of life. They represent all colors, genders, ethnicities, and we want to be able to create work that people want to come and watch. Even if you've never supported the arts, maybe this is your first opportunity too, and here's how you can do it. And we managed to raise $25,000, which is a princely sum in Singapore for the arts.
So that's roughly like 17,000 US, just to make it a bit more global. So thank you, Camille. So on the topic of fundraising, Keigo, you've raised for all the angel investors and kind of adding on top, layering on top some of the questions that Rasmus asked before. You mentioned that it was a very personal relationship, right? But in investment, it's always return on investment, right? And I think that's why when you pitch to VCs, it was tough because they're like, where's the scalability? Can you get me 10x return on or 100x return on my funding, right? So really, if you're gonna be very, very truthful right here, the 20 angel investors they invested in, do you think they invested in because of you, just because of you, and they're really not expecting a return? I know that's a very tough question. It's like, but it's a very, I think, real question that I think a lot of people ask, because that's the key thing that the VCs will ask you, what's my ROI? What's your exit strategy?
I think even within our 20 angels, there's a gradation of where they stand, to people who just believe in our team and they don't expect that much back. And to them, the amount that they've invested in us is just like, not enough for them to put that much, into kind of hassling us in terms of when we'll reach that point. They do believe in what will reach that point at some point. They're not putting us in like a time frame, basically. And for the other angels that are a little bit more hands-on, they believe in what we have set out to do, and they definitely push us, but not in terms of like wanting to get their investment back, but to see us succeed. So it's a very different kind of motivator, and they might have personal ways of like actually changing that energy, even though they might be actually very much focused on the return, the way they interact with us. And we have definitely chosen these angels because of that, but they can help us and frame it and talk to us in a way that is not so much breathing down our neck, but in propelling us forward.
And if they all agreed, all your business angels agreed among them about something you should change, would they be a minority or majority in the decision making?
It's been about half and half, and there's like a healthy discussion that happens amongst our angels every time we have our investor meeting. So but in the end, we always settle on the fact that yes, we should be pushing forward you know, take the risk, go forward, do the bigger things. But the support is very different. You know, take that risk, go straight with your vision. You know, there's been times when we had questions about, you know, the profitability. Do we actually build a hotel that we take more risk in terms of, you know, maybe making not enough profit, but investing into the future? And there's definitely been like both sides in the Angels, but it's been such a healthy conversation that we never felt, thus far, we really haven't felt like we were dealing with someone that didn't align with what we want to do.
Excellent. I'm turning off my phone because I'm here, not in a soundproof studio at the Bella Center, where many of you were last summer, end of June, and giving it over to Gwen, because I think there's a lot of noise coming in, but let's see. Go for it, Gwen.
I have airplanes as well actually here, so also not soundproof, but let's see. I don't know if you can hear that now. But yeah, so Jeff, kind of going to you a little bit, right? So we kind of heard from two creative entrepreneurs who had different kind of fundraising journey. One to investors, one is just starting out kind of the journey of maybe going to investors at some point. So for Jeff, you know, early in your intro, you mentioned that you've invested into some of the creative businesses, quote unquote. So from an investor point of view, for all the companies here, potential companies kind of looking to raise funds, what are the common characteristics? Like, what are you looking out for in an investment?
I think from my point of view, you know, I run other people's money, so I don't run my own money, right? So you need to understand what I want, right? I want a return, very simple. So when I look at creative businesses, it's going to be how scalable can you be, how defensible can you be, you know, potentially are you number one, number two in the country, in the region, or you know, in the world. Initially, obviously, is to help you, you know, is help you grow. Once I figure that out, meaning your vision and my expectation is aligned, then we'll try to help you to get there. Of course, you aim bigger, that's good, right? But sometimes, you know, sometimes the way it is, the founders actually know for a fact that you're not going to be very big, but that's perfectly okay. It just means that you don't fit me, right? Then potentially I could also recommend investors to them who fits them, right? So I think those who have raised money, you kind of know the angels, either they like you but they have no idea what you do, or they think they can help you, right? Sometimes they cannot help you, but they think they can help you. And then some of them, they actually can help you, right? So I think angels, they want to be of use to you, and they want to value add. That's their real, you know, if they are entrepreneurs themselves, they want to help you. That's a very clear thing. I think entrepreneurs have our own code, right? When we see each other, we know exactly what's going on. So I've always joked this before, like when a founder asks a founder, how are you doing? And they say fine, the answer is not fine, right? And we both know it. So we don't have to ask the second question. So, so I think it's just, and then, you know, I think for Hug that's looking to raise, is same thing, right? Find the right investor that can help you strategically, and also understand how big can you eventually be, right? In 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years.
Thanks, Jeff. And I'm going to add on my experience now, switching hats to being a speaker, I guess, rather than moderator-ish. With my experience over like 10 years of kind of investment, early stage investment, it's really key to understand the investor you're speaking to, understand who's in front of you, right? So for example, as an angel right now, I invest with a few friends. To make it easier, we pull our resources together to invest in companies. And even though we're angels, we're not like super rich. And so I can't just throw money and be patrons, so to speak, right? So for me, my angel group, we are looking like a mini VC, quote unquote, essentially. So for someone like myself, I would still want, I have the same kind of criteria as Jeff, you know, as Golden Gate, where I really want a scalability there. Unit economics need to scale. But at the same time, so then there are other investors that, you know, Keigo, I don't know, and you mentioned a few of the profiles of your investors, right? A lot of them, I would think they are, frankly, they have a lot of, disposable income. They, would like to use that to invest, yes, but also as a way to support kind of society and community in general, right? So I think you need to understand the profile of who you're speaking to, the investor you're speaking to, and why they really want to invest in you. So that requires a conversation, and to Keiko's point, like a relationship building and stuff like that. At this point, just because we only have a few minutes left, if you have any questions, please write and raise hand or write in the chat. But Diego, do you mind going to Menti right now? I have a question I would like to ask everyone here that is related, obviously. So the next question,
Great.
please, Diego.
Yes, exactly. So go to menti.com, use the code 693771. True artist, starve, agree, or disagree? We can have, yeah. Let's see here.
Diego, do you mind explaining the 1.5 and 1.4? I don't think I understand this.
Exactly.
Oh, wait,
so
only agree. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so we have here a scale, right, between the ones that are putting in strongly disagree or agree. So what you see here, 1.8 is the
Average, I guess.
The average, exactly, the average of the responses. So we are between 1 and 2. So
1 and 2.
Yeah, exactly. Not completely strongly agree, but close to that.
On a scale that goes to 5, right?
Yes,
the scale goes to 5. Because I was going to say it's not proportional, but okay. So scale goes to 5.
I guess the question is also this: that artists and creatives are in it because they can't help it. They have to get it out of them. An architect wants to build buildings, and a composer wants some music to get out. So they're not really in it for the money, so they might as well starve, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. So I asked this question, I asked the team to put in these questions because that's what I see, right? On a personal level, when I talk to many artists, they're like, yeah, you're selling out by trying to create a business model around it, right? And that's wrong. And I see Kamil kind of shaking his head right there. I mean, Kamil, do you have any response to that?
I do, in the sense that at the end of the day, at least in my field of work, yes, it's about the show, but it's the business of show business. And so how do you create work that is sustainable? And that means that you need to be able to talk numbers and create a framework that people understand.
So then the follow-up question to Kamil and Keigo, right? So maybe Kamil first because you're unmuted, but was it difficult for both of you where, you didn't have a business background to kind of really shift in terms of monetizing your respective arts and the fields? That it was more not about creating the actual business model, but more like from a personal level, did you feel like you were selling out at some point that you do kind of change your point of view? I know you say that we shouldn't, but was there some change in the past?
Yes, there was, because the intention for the business at the start was purely a training student for actors only. And then I realized very quickly Singapore doesn't have that many professional actors. And then I realized just through sort of fail fast, fail early, figure it out, that the biggest underserved community was the creative double lifer community. And then above and beyond that, as I grew, I realized that there was a need to bring theater into the workplace. And so how do I use the skills and tools of theater and acting and then bring it into the corporate environment so it makes it applicable and approachable and accessible to people. And so there was a moment of, gosh, this is not what I intended, but in order for me to make myself sustainable and in order for me to still hold on to my principles of making art accessible to people, I had to shift who my target demographic was.
And Keigo,
yeah,
short.
So we draw a pretty strict line about where we stand. We see ourselves more of a platform for the artists that we work with. So we ourselves don't take this stance that we're the creative. So what we're doing is we're trying to empower, support, and educate the artists, the starving artists. And what we're doing is creating a different kind of business model where we can convert their work into value that other people can pay for, rather than just purchasing or deciding to become a patron of the arts. So we're kind of taking the stance that we're a mediator, but heavily standing on the artist side and trying to serve them.
I can maybe supplement that. We did a study here in 2011, 2010 of 1,642 creative companies, and had them compared to a bunch of normal non-creative companies, and we saw that they were just as ambitious commercially as other companies. You can't say that the artists, the writers, the singers, the composers, etc., they have the same commercial ambitions. Actually, they want to be heard, read, experienced. So we could actually, with that study, and it was actually filtered for an SME bias or like that, show that there's nothing to indicate that they weren't interested in a commercial success, as well, of course, an artistic success. And those two can actually go hand in hand.
Thank you, Rasmus. I've
We
got
have
one
last comment from Gwen.
Yeah, I've got one last question for actually all the panelists, and then Rasmus, later you can, kind of help us sum things up. So panelists, I would like to, going back to the theme of questions again, let's end off with one thing, right? What is one question that you think founders in creative entrepreneurs, founders who are fundraising or just in general should be asking but not asking? So what are questions that they should be asking but not asking? We go one question each. So it's more, I would love the question to be something that is like hidden, a bit secret that
and you have about 15 seconds for it each.
Whoever unmutes first and go. Anyone?
I'm not sure. Otherwise, go ahead, Camille.
So I think it's, how can we as creative businesses find and sustain ways to stay relevant and sustainable, and more importantly, be deemed essential businesses in a turbulent time where perhaps the arts and creativity have been told to take a back seat and make room for the more traditional economic pillars?
For me, it's is inspiration actually valuable, and can we convince other people that it is valuable?
Jeff?
Two questions. What am I weak in? And why am I not asking for help?
Thank you. Okay. And my question to everyone is that, why can't I go bigger? So think bigger. Why can't I go bigger? Where else can I take this? So that's all for me. Rasmus, on to you.
Thank you, Gwen. And thank you also, Keiko, Camille, and Jeffrey for being part of this webinar, Creative Business Investors, and to all of you signing in and joining us from all over the world. It is now a bit past 10 here in Central Europe, and we're done with this Creative Business Network seminar on investors. There will be another one, as I mentioned in the beginning, on the 17th in the afternoon, and there will be also one when we hold the Bright 2020, which takes place online from the 29th of June to the 3rd of July. Thank you, everyone, for being part of it. Stay tuned, and we'll be in touch soon again. Tak.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.